What's up, you amazing people? I hope you're having a fantastic day. You are, of course, watching and listening to the Daily Dirty 30, also known as the DDT, here on the Kevin Lee Show. And I am your host, Kevin Lee. Now, for those of you who do not know what the DDT is all about, let me take a moment to explain. You see, it's a show that airs live at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, Monday through Friday, and it's where I get to spend 30 minutes telling you, the viewer, all about the things that bother me today. What do I get out of it? It's easy. It's therapeutic. Why should you tune in? That's even easier. It's entertaining. Sound like a fair trade? Good. Let's get to it. Hello, friends, and happy Monday. Yes, I did say happy Monday because, as I always say, if you can enjoy a Monday, you can enjoy anything. That being said, I also hope that you had a happy weekend. Unfortunately, we are through the weekend. We are now back to the weekdays. But I hope you had a great weekend. Sorry, I think I'm having some technical difficulties with my camera. I apologize. But yeah. And for some reason, if you happen to be watching this or listening to it later at some point down the road, I hope you're having a fantastic day too. But that being said, it's time to get on with our stories for the day. Now, we have been, as you're well aware, we have been discussing Kamala Harris and her stances because, let's face it, she is the heir apparent to become president if and when Joe Biden wins the election. Because remember, he's actually the one running, even though it doesn't seem that way. But that being said, yeah, but we're going to get back to that. We're going to take a little break today. We have talked about a number of things, and there are still a number of things of her and her views and her stances and her experience that I want to talk about. Obviously, she was a DA and then an AG of California. Attorney General and District Attorney of San Francisco. I kept telling myself and telling you guys that I'm not going to be using abbreviations for things, and then I turn around and I use abbreviations for things. I apologize. My bad. But yeah, so she has a voting record as a senator. She has a prosecutorial record as a prosecutor, and we have to go over those things. We have to talk about how she attacked drugs or how she attacked certain types of non-violent or quote-unquote victimless crimes I would like to touch base on, but we're not going to do that today because, as you know, the show is called The Daily Dirty 30, and there are times when I wake up and I start going through my day and something just jumps out and grabs me, and I just feel like I have to talk about it. That's kind of the whole idea of this show, and that's why we're doing it. And today I've got two things that I want to talk about, but first I want to remind you who I am. My name's Kevin, and of course, like I said, you are watching the Daily Dirty 30 here from the Kevin Lee Show. We are on Monday through Friday, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. And today we are going to be talking about Antifa and the USPS. I almost said UPS. The USPS. Too many letters. So we're going to be talking kind of about Antifa, and we're going to be talking about kind of the USPS. Obviously, again, USPS is United States Postal Service. But first, we are actually going to be talking about Antifa, potentially. Antifa infiltration or possibly just BLM gone wild. And what happened is, again, I'm from Chicago, so a lot of my stories will be dealing with Chicago. But in Chicago this past weekend, actually even leading up to this past weekend, BLM decided they wanted to have a march. And Mayor Lightfoot, in her ultimate wisdom, decided that she did not want to have them have another march downtown, because chances are it's eventually going to turn into looting and or rioting and or violence of some sort. So she wanted to, keep it away from the city. So she made a deal with some of these organizational leaders and said, hey, why don't you have your march on the Dan Ryan, the major expressway or one of the major expressways in Chicago. Okay, sure. I guess that's a good idea. Let's put people on an expressway. Obviously, they're going to shut down part of the expressway for this. And they were going to get the state police involved. There was going to be this whole thing. And the reason why I bring this up, I think, will be self-evident here in just a moment. But make sure I got the right slide up before I go live here. Okay, so what we're going to talk about here now is this. This was the headline that was leading into, this is published on August 15th, so it was 2 days ago on Saturday at 10:38 a.m. Chicago Dan Ryan Expressway protest was expected to start later that afternoon on Saturday. And Chicago officials said roughly 2,000 protesters are estimated to attend. And actually, I heard estimates as high as 2,200, 2,300. But obviously, they're looking for a big turnout, and that's why state police got involved. They said, okay, we'll shut down a certain portion of the Dan Ryan. We'll allow them to enter on a certain uh, at a certain point, and then march to a certain point, and then get off. And then they were supposed to end up, I think, in Grant Park, and that was the whole thing. Is it supposed to be, a demonstration, a peaceful protest slash march? So, on paper, it seemed like a good idea. I don't think they should be allowed to shut down the Dan Ryan on a Saturday to do this, but, better than them, destroying stores and setting things on fire and stealing and looting and breaking and what have you. So it sounded like a good alternative. Sure, I agree with that aspect of it. Now, fast forward to later on Saturday, and we're going to have this one. So this is actually posted from Twitter. This is Amy Jacobson, who is I don't want to say former reporter, because I still think she's a reporter, but she's now more of an opinionated reporter, and she has a morning show that she does with Dan Proft on The Morning Answer. And long story short, she likes to get her hands dirty, right? And this is the reporter in her. She likes to go out to the scenes when she knows something's going to be happening, or she believes that there's supposed to be marching or rioting going on late at night near her house. She'll go drive there to view it, to talk to people, to interview people, to take pictures. I mean, she's really hands-on. So she decided to go to this march and find out what was going on with it. Surprise, surprise, only 150 people out of the alleged 2,200 whatever showed up. Because of this, the Illinois State Police and Chicago Police decided to stop them from entering the Dan Ryan because it was too small of a number to try to shut down the entire expressway. These small number left over were very angry. They were angry indeed, and they decided that they were going to march downtown and take it to the man again. So this was going to be about a 5-mile march. So it wasn't like 2 minutes. I mean, it takes a little while to even get 150 people, 5 miles on foot. So that was kind of where we're at with that. Now, it's obviously, they just were peacefully marching for the most part. There was no problems, but for whatever reason, the police decided that they didn't want. Now, I don't know if this was by order. No one knows. This hasn't been released as far as I know, but police were blocking off their advancement after a certain point. And this is when things, I don't want to say got ugly, but kind of got ugly. And there's good reason for that, to be honest with you. So we're going to talk about that. The reason why this, okay, pull this up here. Full screen so we can see it. Now I'm going to play it real big. There'll be some volume here. There'll be some audio. Now I'm going to keep pausing this video because if you're watching this, there's actually annotations that are put there by the Chicago Police Department who posted this video. But for anyone who might be listening to this podcast, see, I got it right this time. I didn't say that to people at home. So people listening to the podcast won't be able to see it. And it's a short video. It's less than 2 minutes long. But I will go and make minor little points for those who are not watching. Okay. Again, I don't know if there's any audio of this or not. I don't think so. So again, this is from August 15th, 2 days ago on Michigan Avenue and Wacker Drive. The police decided to stop them. Now those kind of zoom in, zoom out. And what you can't see here is they're pointing an arrow. So there's a red arrow pointing at someone who's wearing a plastic poncho. It wasn't expected to rain. That wasn't the issue. That wasn't the reason. He hadn't been wearing the poncho previous to this, but he puts on a poncho. Excuse me. And you'll see there's some other people around them who are getting ready to put on some ponchos as well. And the police are stating that they believe that this was part of a planned attack, if you will. Again, I think they'll have some more notes going forward. So it says group organizers don ponchos to better identify themselves among the group. So again, you see people pulling out supplies out of big backpacks and duffel bags and looking for things. And again, the group is not very big. It's stuck at an intersection. And now you'll start noticing that people are starting to open up umbrellas very systematically all throughout the group. Umbrellas are open to conceal actions of the group from police because the police are A, distracted by the umbrellas, and B, can't see past them. So they kind of try to make a wall of umbrellas to stop people in certain areas when they're doing certain things or getting prepared. This is not a new technique, but this is something that Chicago police wanted to make sure that people like you and I who are not involved on this level and who aren't seeing it firsthand can actually understand and experience what it is they have to deal with. So again, it's just showing more issues of the crowd. Now they kind of come back. Now there's a group of people wearing ponchos, all in a tight-knit area, almost arm in arm, and they quickly start advancing towards the front of the group, towards the police line. That's something, again, you won't be able to see because if you're listening, but if you're watching, please pay attention to what they do next. So the group collectively approaches the police with locked arms to make themselves more of a barrier. Again, you can see it's not a very large group. I mean, this is an intersection, and, there may be, 4 deep, 5 deep, and they're, barely covering the width of the street. So it's not a huge group of people, mind you. It's not thousands of people. It's not, even 1,000 people. It's probably 150 people, maybe 200. Who knows? Okay, and as approaching the line, all of a sudden, they get towards the front. You can see him zoom in. Here's someone up the front. Now, what you can't see right there is an individual with a green bike helmet begins to scuffle by lunging at the police line. So one of the activists, the peaceful protesters, if you will, becomes violent. They make an action towards the police. Police start pushing back, fighting back. And there'll be another angle here coming up. So right there, you just saw it. There's someone with a skateboard. Swings and hits one of the police officers. Some people in the crowd are backing up for the most part. They're kind of standing there. Police are still holding their line. But as you can see, it was not at all in any way, shape, or form the police who were the ones who instigated this issue. And the police are saying that this has been the norm, especially in Chicago as of late. They keep getting blamed for all these attacks, getting blamed for instigating and being the agitator when clearly it's not. Now, can I say that that's the case all the time? No, of course not. But here's video proof of what happened on Saturday, even though many people reporting on it, even some of the news stations were saying that the police are the ones who started the violence. I think there were 17 police officers hurt, 24 protesters were injured. So even though there wasn't even a large number of people involved in this interaction, still plenty of people got hurt and injured. And it's ridiculous if you ask me. But this is the problem. And I'm sure a good number of those people there were peaceful. They just wanted to march. They just wanted to get their message out. They just wanted to do good. But a small number of agitators, may it be Antifa members or just zealous Black Lives Matter protesters, I don't know. There hasn't been anything unearthed yet as to who these people were or, who they were, why they were there. But they were clearly the ones agitating and instigating the situation. They're the ones who advanced. They're the ones who attacked. They're the ones who lunged at police. They're the ones who struck the police. And even then, I have to say the police were pretty darn restrained. There was some pushback by the police, of course. And there were people who were defending themselves as police. Maybe a couple of batons came out, but no real violent strikes that I could see on film. And this is just the case. This is what's going on in every major city. Every time that you think that everything is peaceful and all of a sudden all hell breaks loose and you can't figure out why, it's usually because of something like this. Now, it's never to say that the police are not at fault. I'm not saying that. There is a chance that in any of these situations that the police could be the instigator. But on average, your typical interaction, I don't think it's the police throwing the first punch, because I've seen literally hundreds of hours of protesters getting in police's face, screaming them, being 2 inches from their face, spitting all over them, mind you, in the middle of a pandemic of COVID-19. And the police are just sitting there looking forward, not making any advancement. So I'd have to give them, generally speaking, the benefit of the doubt over most of these protesters. Now, we're already halfway through the show. It's time to move on, everybody. And what we are going to move on to now is this, the USPS controversy. So if you haven't heard, which I'm sure you have, but let's just say you haven't heard, the United States Postal Service allegedly is under attack by the Trump administration. And the Trump administration is trying to ruin the election and steal the election by preventing people to be able to vote and shutting down the mail. None of this is true at all in any way, shape, or form. And I really wish I could devote like an hour to this, because I could easily devote an hour to this, playing you videotape, playing you audio tapes, showing you article after article of what exactly I am talking about. But I will give you a quick snapshot of some of the things that have been on the internet. Here's the headline. It says, Trump's finger pointing on USPS is latest attempt to rewrite history in real time. So basically trying to steal the election. Here's another one. Oh, can't see it there. It says, what's wrong with the mail? As November nears, the Postal Service is facing a crisis that could interfere with the election. And that was on Vox. And it's just story after story like this. And again, they're trying to get you to click, and they're trying to get you to read their articles, and so they can get ad revenue. I mean, that's what they're doing. I get it. But you're falling for it. That's the thing. I see so many people, so many friends of mine who are Democrats or liberals, who are just losing their absolute minds over this nonsense. There's video of a mail flatbed truck picking up mailboxes in certain areas, and it's like the same truck in the same little area in some little town picking up some mailboxes, and it's a national news story that all these mailboxes around the country are being taken, so no one can mail their ballots. Do you have a mailbox? Chances are you do. Do you see a mailman? You can hand it to him. Do you have a post office? You can put it there. First off. Second off, they're not taking the mailboxes. In fact, many of these cases, the mailboxes are just being switched out because they're too old. They do that periodically. In fact, over a 5-year period, the Obama administration removed 14,000 mailboxes, but there was no uproar then. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh. I know you take it very serious. I know this is very upsetting for you. But we really do need to get to the truth of this. And there is a wonderful article and written by, what is his name? I'm going to have to pull it up here. And we can all see it together just for a second. This is Byron York, writing for the Washington Examiner. And it's called A Reality-Based Look at Trump and the Post Office. So what we're going to do is we are actually going to, maybe I can blow this up a little bigger, make it easy for anyone trying to look in a little tiny phone. But it simply says the news is filled with reports of President Trump's assault on the U.S. Postal Service. The president, Democrats, and some in the media say is deliberately slowing mail delivery, and crippling the Postal Service so that it cannot handle an anticipated flood of voting by mail in the presidential election. Former President Barack Obama said Trump is trying to actively kneecap the Postal Service to suppress the vote. Speaker Nancy Pelosi has called the House back into session this week and has set an urgent hearing for August 24th, demanding Postmaster General Louis DeJoy, what a weird name, Louis DeJoy, and the head of the Postal Service Board of Government to testify to address the sabotage of the Postal Service. Some of the accusations have grown so frantic that they resemble the frenzy of a couple of years ago when the allegation from many of the same people that Trump had conspired with Russia to fix the 2016 election. Now it's the Postal Service. But what actually is going on? Here's a brief look at some of the issues involved, and we'll dig deeper into that in a second. But oh my goodness, gracious. People have gone and lost their minds. Now, again, I understand if you're a Democrat, if you're a liberal, if you only watch CNN, MSNBC, some of the big major news network opinionated shows in nighttime, and some of the political shows on the weekend, that's all you're going to think, right? If you listen to your talk radio, that's progressive talk radio, they're going to keep spewing the same thing. So everywhere you turn, you keep hearing this. So I don't blame you. I really don't. But I do wish that in 2020, with everything that's going on, you would take the time to do some homework. Like, you don't have to know every answer. You don't have to believe everything that might be contrary to what your sources tell you. But at least spend some time investigating other reports, because there's reports all over the place that are blowing this out of the water, like this one. It's really kind of sad. Now, the whole ordeal is, first off, most people don't understand, the post office is completely budgeted through 2020, all the way to the end. And they had anticipated a larger than normal turnout for mail-in balloting, and that was also paid for the rest of this year. There's nothing for this year that's up in the air. It's all paid for. Now, that being said, they are running a deficit, and they are in debt. In fact, I think the post office, I read somewhere, is about $79 billion in debt. And they're running a deficit every year now, and they're just spending more than they make, and they really need to raise their prices. But if they do that, they're afraid no one's going to want to use them because who would use them and who would pay more money? I mean, I remember not even that many years ago, it was like 25 cents for a stamp, and now it's like 55, 60 cents. I don't even know. I buy a book of stamps maybe once a year. And I say, can I get a book of stamps at the grocery store? And they say, okay, and they add to my grocery. So I have no idea how much that even cost. But obviously, they need to raise their prices or fix their problems. Because again, just like the government, no matter where you're at or what state you're in or what have you, the problem is they keep making empty promises to people and they can't deliver on them. And they keep promising people tons of money for their pensions and their retirements. And that is just blowing their budget out of the water. But that's literally a discussion for a different day because we are here on the Daily Dirty 30, only have 30 minutes a day to talk to you. Yeah, maybe we'll do that in the Libertarian Hour. I don't know if you guys watch Libertarian Hour yet, but totally check it out. It's every Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern. We talk about things from a libertarian-minded perspective. But yeah, maybe we'll talk about the post office because, again, in certain ways, it's a wonderful, wonderful entity. And at the same time, it's absolutely terrible. I'm not saying mailmen are overpaid. I'm not saying I'm not saying they're not overworked. I'm not saying anything of the slight. I actually know people who are mail persons. Is that the proper name? Mailman, mail women, mail carriers. Maybe we'll go with that. Mail carriers. Because can I say mail? Then people don't think I say mail like man, and then they take that the wrong way. And I don't know. Who knows? Anyways, so postal service is an issue currently right now. But they have enough funding for right now. And the people are like, well, my God, you don't understand. If we are going to have to send all these ballots to people's houses and then mail them back in, that's like 100, 120, 140, maybe 150 million mail-in ballots. There's no way that this huge surcharge or surplus of mail coming in can be handled by the post office without spending billions of dollars to back it up. Well, no, first off, the post office is asking for money because they want those billions of dollars because they're in debt and they're running in debt. First off, and but that being said, I'm going to pull up the next slide here, and we're going to go through this real carefully because I guarantee you, I'm going to give you some statistics right now that are absolutely going to blow your mind. And if not, then you're either a psychopath or you work for the post office and you know better. So here we go. So this states, okay, I'm going to read this nice and slow for everybody, okay? Because I'm not going to repeat myself. 142.5 billion pieces of mail. Okay, I'm going to repeat that again, even though I just said I wasn't going to. 142.5 billion pieces of mail. Now, that's not all the mail that the U.S. Post Office has delivered throughout its history. That's not how much it's done since 1900. That's not how much it's done since the year 2000. That's how much mail it delivered last year. Last year, they delivered 142.5 billion pieces of mail. The idea that the Postal Service will not be able to handle the volume of mail in this election or not be able to handle it within normal Postal Service time guidelines does not make much sense. According to its most recent annual report last year, again, 2019, the Postal Service handled 142.5 billion pieces of mail. Now, listen very carefully to this, okay? Especially if you're on the podcast. I don't care if you're like in your car, just like turn down, the air conditioning or whatever, or pull off the side of the road because chances are you're going to be a little spooked by this one, okay? On any typical day, well, first off, I'm going to give you a little reminder. Okay, the post office is not open 365 days a year. They don't deliver mail 365 days a year, nor do they collect mail 365 days a year. Now, there are processing centers that probably are open 7 days. 365, but generally speaking, typically the average day post office and average day postal worker is not open 7 days a week. They're closed Sundays, correct? Correct. As well as they get off every major holiday. So that puts them at just a few days over 300 days of delivering mail a year. And mind you, they do 142.5 billion pieces of mail. So on a typical day, well, first off, also something else I want to state that you may not know is that the USPS, the United States Postal Service, has 633,000 employees. Okay, keep that in mind. A lot of workers. On a typical day, our 633,000 employees physically process and deliver blank mail pieces to nearly blank delivery points. Now, I'm going to say those blanks because I want to build a little anticipation here, okay? So I want you in your head to start thinking, okay, 633,000 employees physically process and deliver how many pieces of mail to how many different delivery points every single typical day in the United States? Just the United States. How many do you think? On a typical day, our 633,000 employees physically process and deliver blank mail pieces to nearly blank delivery points. Okay. You got a number in your head? You got a picture in your head of what you think it might be? Okay, good. Hold on to that right second, okay? On a typical day, our 633,000 employees physically process and deliver 471 million pieces of mail to nearly 160 million delivery points. That's every day. The United States Postal Service delivers 471 million pieces of mail on Monday, 471 million pieces of mail on Tuesday, 471 million pieces of mail on Wednesday. See what I'm getting at here? They deliver a lot of mail. So to add 100, 120, 130, 140, 150 million extra pieces is not going to be that cumbersome considering all in all. Okay? Does this make a little bit more sense now? Maybe? Right? And actually this year, and mind you, those are 2019 numbers, right? And this year, that number has been averaging and trending higher. And giving, just more people being at home and having to mail things versus, being able to just go out and get things. So a lot more mail has been moving, a lot more stimulus checks, that sort of thing, right? And it says, right, this is that alone, just census forms and stimulus checks, just those little things that most of us aren't even getting because most of us have direct deposits, so most of us aren't even getting the stimulus check physically. And census forms, most of us did it, or not most of us, but a good number of us did them online, right? So just taking the people who didn't do it online or didn't get them directly posted, of the census forms and stimulus checks, just the ones that had to go through the United States Postal Service, that added about 450 million additional pieces of mail. There was no problem with that, was there? Nope. No problem. No problem at all. Oh, see, there's nothing to worry about. Now, there are certain things to be worried about. There are issues where, as we covered a couple weeks ago, someone did a story where they were trying to do a simple little control test of mailing ballots. So they took things that would be the size and shape and weight of a ballot, and they took 100 of them, and they mailed them all throughout, I think it was Philadelphia, and mailed them to a P.O. box. And most of them didn't show up. And until they complained and told the postal office that they were doing this experiment for a news show, and all of a sudden, most of them showed up eventually. But even then, not all of them showed up. Now, out of 100 ballots, ultimately, weeks down the road, all but 3 showed up. Now, if you take that in consideration, and we say 100 million ballots are going out, well, 3% is 3 million ballots that may or may not get counted. Not just one little anecdotal story. But there are other stories. If you go on there we're not looking for mail fraud. We're not looking for voter fraud. I'm not even talking about that, which is real in little aspects. I mean, you do have vengeful judges who will hide ballots or make sure someone loses in a certain district, mostly on a local level. It's things that have happened all throughout history, both on to those who are Democrats and those who are Republicans. That's nothing new. But that's not even what we're talking about. We're just talking about the mail getting to where it's supposed to go to, right? And so that is an issue, right? That is a huge issue. We need to be worried about that. Perfect example. So right now, we're not prepared. We were never prepared this year, going into this year, thinking we're going to have this mass mail-in ballots for an election. And because of that, we're not prepared, right? Perfect example, Nevada. Clark County is where Las Vegas is located. So just in Clark County, just in one county of Nevada. Now, mind you, probably the most populated, but still just one county in Nevada. They had over 253,000 ballots that they deemed undeliverable because addresses didn't exist, people didn't exist, things were returned to centers, and what have you. Mind you, there's only like 2 million people there, and 253,000 ballots. And this is a small controlled area because I don't know if you're aware of this, but the actual state of Nevada doesn't have that many people, considering it has cities like Vegas and Reno and what have you. It's not that highly populated, and they still had hundreds of thousands of ballots that they couldn't even deliver because their voter rolls are so messed up. Now imagine a state that's actually populated like California, Texas, Illinois, New York, Florida. It's going to be a freaking nightmare. Now that being said, I'm not against mail-in voting. I typically mail-in vote, but at least in Illinois, we have to request a vote or request a mail-in ballot. And to do that, I have to go online and sign up and do all these steps. And I have to give them email addresses and it's got to be sent to my registered address. And if I want to change it, I have to, give proof for that. And then sign a thing saying I'd be perjuring myself if I lied about any of this stuff. So they take it pretty seriously. And then even then, when they mail it to me, I get an email. And then when I mail it back and they receive it, I get an email. And once it's counted, I get an email. So it's under control to some extent. Mail-in balloting, when they're planning on sending, 30 million ballots throughout California to people who just happen to be 18 or older, a resident, and they have a name to an address, they're planning on sending out ballots to. That's craziness. I mean, again, if they're registered voters, maybe we can talk about that. But even then, they should have to request it like we do in Illinois. And trust me, I'm not bragging about Illinois. We ain't got much to brag about, but this is actually something I think we do pretty well. At least in Cook County. I don't know if it's through all counties, but obviously I live in the most populated county throughout the state. I think just in the metropolitan area, in Cook County area, we have over half, I think, the state's population, pretty much just right where I live, between that and the city. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. Pretty crazy indeed. So with that being said, oh my God, we're 32 minutes already. We're way over. I'm sorry. I apologize. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. Anyways, I hope you guys had a good time. Hope you enjoyed the show. Today is Monday. We have 4 more days of this, guys. So buckle in. Get ready. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about, I don't know. Find out tomorrow. And so will you. But until then, have a good one.